Okay, we are recording.
All right, so we thought it would be a good idea to kind of put this training together because we are in the time of COVID, so everything is virtual. And we just wanted to go ahead and give y'all some tips and tricks on how to be able to do our 4-H projects virtually. But one thing that I did want to go over with you all is 4-H Online. I just wanted to go ahead and verify, that we do have a new program as far as 4-H Online goes. It's no longer 4-H Connect. It has transitioned into 4-H Online, so it does look completely brand new. The credentials to log in should be the same as they were for 4-H Connect. And just don't forget to go ahead and get yourself registered, those of you that are on here, because you will be project leaders working with our youth. So it'll be a good idea to go ahead and get yourselves registered. It is still $10. I know some of you have already registered, and the one thing that I just want to remind you all is that don't forget to do those trainings. There are 2 trainings that are on there that you need to complete in order for me to go ahead and approve your registration. As I know that when I registered, it was a little difficult for me to see those trainings because it doesn't automatically prompt you to do them when you're registering. You kind of have to go back and look on your profile, and there is going to be a section that says trainings. And on there, you click through there, and then it'll show you those 2 trainings that you need to complete. If y'all have any questions about that, we can talk about that at the end of our presentation. And if you need any help, of course, feel free to reach out to us when it comes to 4-H Online. I know it's a little tricky sometimes to register on there, so feel free to contact us if you need any help. And that's all I have to say on that.
All right, so next we're going to go into kind of best virtual practices on how to engage our kids, because this is kind of a new frontier, and we're not sure how much longer we're going to be, we're going to have to be doing this. We don't want to wait too late in the year to start engaging with our kids just because we can't see them face to face. And so we have certain resources that can help us to be able to start engaging with all of our club members virtually. So, we, Texas A&M did put out a best practice kind of fact sheet that I will share here. Can everybody see that? So this is best practices and considerations for virtual online when we're having our virtual meetings. So so we do want to make sure that, even though it is virtual, we want to make sure that all of our adult volunteers have been screened and done their background check and their trainings through the Texas 4-H Online website. All information that is shared or discussed during the meetings should be shared with those that are also not in attendance, which is, kind of one of the reasons why we are recording this training, because not everybody has the accessibility to do it at the same time, or maybe they don't have internet access at this point, but they will later. So we need to be able to, kind of bridge that gap in one way or another. All of the same policies and rules and guidelines that are outlined in Texas 4-H still apply when it comes to youth protection standards, when it comes to the code of conduct, and when it comes to online training, modules. So we still don't want to encourage one-on-one private meetings between a 4-H member and an adult. That's still not allowed. If we are going to have one-on-one meetings, then we need at least 2 adult members to be present on the online platform. We want it to be project focused, or it be a routine business club meeting, like your monthly meetings. If anything else arises, of course, we want you to consult us, your county agents, if you have any issues. So, to determine what best platform to use, it would be good to survey the families and see what they have been using already. I know a lot of the kids have been, doing virtual learning. So some of them have been doing the Google Classroom, some of them have been doing Zoom. Zoom does have a free account that will allow you 40 minutes, I believe. And then it's a $15 um, fee a month if you want something that's more than 40 minutes for up to 100 people. It does specify there that can be purchased through the club account if that's something that y'all would be interested in. Or, another offer would be to let us know, because I believe both Clarissa and I have Zoom accounts. So to let us know so that we can create a meeting for you and at least start it. And that way, if your club doesn't have to purchase a membership, but you want more than 40 minutes. So, but other things are Microsoft Teams, you have Skype, we also have WebEx. Google Hangout is free, and it is also unlimited. There's no limit to, how much time, and there isn't a limit to how many people. I've used Google Hangout a couple of times, and it's all you need to have is a Gmail, and they'll allow you to use Google Hangout. So, kind of research and see what would be best for your families, and what do your families already know how to use, so the learning curve isn't too far. And then, if you're going to be the one running the meetings, then you want to be familiar with all of the resources and all of the things that come with that platform, whether it's chat or messaging, how to host a meeting, how to have co-hosts and how to assign other people co-hosts, how to mute. Certain platforms have certain abilities to allow kids to, kind of raise their hand. They have a little icon for them to raise their hand without actually having to turn on the camera. If that's something, you want to make sure you know how to share, like Clarissa and I are sharing currently. And then you also want them to have the ability to call in, because if they don't have the computer, then, the alternative would be to call in. So something like Zoom and WebEx both have that ability to call in, and that way they're not missing out any information. And then virtual background is also helpful. If they don't want to share what their house looks like, or they don't want to share that people are moving around in their background, then a virtual background, something like I have currently, is something that can be created. I believe I created this on the Canva program. And so I simply took a picture, off of Google Images, and then I put my logo on there, but the kids can, take a picture of them doing one of their projects and put it on the background. Or they can have, a approved 4-H logo on there and put it as their background. So they don't necessarily have to share, what's going on behind them. So, when you do start hosting virtual meetings, it is important that you let your county extension agents know, that you're hosting them, that they're happening online, just so that we're aware, just in case if anything comes up, we know that virtual meetings are happening, and we'll know, who to contact. So you want to make sure that parents register. All right, hello again. So it's a perfect example of what can happen during virtual meetings is internet can cut out, out of nowhere. And so it is important if you're the host to have maybe if that is what happens with your internet connection, which something that happens to me in my home, usually around 12 o'clock when it feels like everybody's using the internet goes slow. So I use my hotspot as a backup. So that's exactly what I just did. You know, I switched from my home internet to my hotspot, and usually my phone is a lot more reliable in those cases. So, you know, you want to take that into account too. Like it could be that, you know, for some reason, if your internet isn't, you know, the most reliable, then you can create the meeting, but you can also have uh, assign somebody else to be host or co-host. And that way, if you get kicked out, the entire meeting doesn't go blank, or it doesn't kick anybody else out because you have somebody else assigned. So let me go back to sharing. So you want to, once you create a link, once you create a meeting link, then you want to be able to share that with all of your club members. But, you know, something that started happening in the beginning of all of this virtual world was that meetings were trying to get kind of bombed, you know, and images that didn't need to be seen by kids, you know, were put up. So we want to make this a private link. We want to make sure that it isn't shared on social media. Don't put it on your 4-H Facebook or Instagram page. We want to make sure that it isn't kind of blasted out to everybody. We want to make sure that it is only sent to the kids that are going to be at that meeting, or to the families that are going to be at that meeting. So Zoom put in the extra precaution of creating a waiting room. Before, you would have to enable that, and whoever would log into the meeting would have to wait in the waiting room. Now it's automatic. It doesn't matter whether it's enabled or not. Everybody's going to be put in a waiting room before they get accepted into the meeting. So that's a new security precaution, and that just helps you see, you know, who's being logged in, who maybe, you know, you have no idea who this person is. So you can kind of have a private conversation with them on the side and just, you know, try to have an introduction and make sure that they're supposed to be there. You also want to make sure when you send that Zoom link, you want to let the kids know that when they register to go into the meeting, to put their first and last name, and that can identify them, and you know who it is that's coming into the meeting. You want to make sure that it is password protected, and don't share the password publicly, such as social media. Only share the password through direct communication. And like I said, in certain platforms like Zoom, the waiting room is automatic. That just happens. In other platforms like Microsoft Teams or Google Hangout, that's not automatic. So, you know, that's something that you would need to enable if you would like to use it, which is recommended to use. And now that I've said that, that reminds me, gives me a reminder, if everybody could please put their first and last name in the chat, and that will help us for attendance for today's training. Now for recording, they are discouraging recording because of privacy laws. So if it is something that you want to record, you feel the need to record, then they do suggest that you contact the county agent to see if there is a legitimate reason to record meetings. And if it's determined that it is legitimate, then you would do exactly what I did in the beginning of the meeting and let everybody know that this is going to be recorded, and give them the option to, you know, exclusively use the chat, and to turn off their cameras if they don't want to be, you know, seen or heard through the recording. And then recordings, for Zoom, you can save the recording on your computer, or you can save it on a cloud. And then you can share that recording with whoever you would like to share it with, whether that's people that weren't able to come to the meeting or who would like to see trainings. And then after you don't need it anymore, they recommend that you delete the recording. Of course, you don't want to discuss any personal information. You don't want to, collect or share addresses, health records, bank information, all of that. You don't want to do any of that. So, if it's something, a question or something that has to do with like treasury or a treasury report that includes sharing some kind of bank information, you don't want to do that virtually online. That would probably be a better discussion to be done over the phone. You want to make sure that everybody has the appropriate equipment to be able to attend. We don't want to leave anybody out. Again, one of the best things that you could do is use a platform that allows both video and a phone dial-in, so that if they don't have access to a laptop or they don't have access to an iPad, they at least have access to a phone that they can dial in. Or if they don't have internet, but they have a cell phone, then they can dial in. And that's exactly what accessibility is. You want to make sure that that every meeting, just like a regular 4-H meeting, that it has an agenda, and you send the agenda out to everybody beforehand so they know what is going to happen during the virtual meeting, and they can be prepared. That's one of the things. I've done a lot of virtual summer programs, and that's one of the things, being prepared, that's different from virtual and in person. Before, I would bring everything the kids would need to be able to participate. But now, if there's an activity, I need to ask them to be prepared in advance, because I'm no longer there to give them their supplies. That's something that needs to be purchased beforehand. So with any activity that you're thinking about doing, again, that needs to be something that is communicated to them in advance so that they can be ready to participate the day of the virtual meeting or the virtual activity. And then, of course, meetings shouldn't be drastically different. It should be very much the same. Procedural wise, we want to keep the same agenda. Etiquette should be the same. We want to start and stop at scheduled times. Um, we want to make the meetings run as smooth as possible. Make sure that we ask members to mute their microphones. And we also, sometimes we forget. I forget to mute my microphones at times. And so we do want to be able to assign either adult volunteers, or we can assign some of the kids to help moderate the virtual meeting. So you assign one person to be the person that mutes everybody. You can assign another person to take care of the chat. So if anybody has questions in the chat, they'll be the ones that are answering, because when somebody is sharing, when the presenter is sharing, it's very hard to share and look at the chat at the same time. So, there's going to be a delay when people are asking questions. So if you have a youth or an adult moderating the chat, that would be really helpful for the presenter, because then that person moderating can speak, aloud, the question that's being asked in the chat that the presenter probably isn't looking at because they're looking at their presentation. You want to make sure that you remind the youth to dress appropriately. Just because the meetings are at their home, it's probably not best for them to use their PJs, or to want to make sure that they're looking their 4-H best, especially if they're going to have their camera on. You want to minimize the chance of background distractions. So again, that's where that kind of background for Zoom helps. Microsoft Teams, I believe, also now is allowing backgrounds. You want to visit with club members to determine what they would like to see during the meetings. Do they prefer to see the video or the person that's speaking? Would they rather see the agenda or perhaps the notes someone is taking? Would the agenda topics on individual slides be preferred, or determine if the program presenter needs to show slides or videos during his or her presentation? We want to keep these kids still engaged. They're used to seeing somebody, you know, being up in front of them speaking, and now they're looking at presentations, they're looking at PowerPoint slides instead. So, you know, we want to keep them engaged and make sure that it's not too different from if we were face to face. So, you know, a quick kind of survey of what would be best for them, what would keep them engaged. So again, keeping participants engaged is one of the most challenging aspects of online meetings, especially if they have their camera off, because you don't know if they're sitting in front of the computer or if they took off to go get water. You know, so we want to make sure that they're kept engaged. So allow a little bit of time before the meeting starts for everybody to test their audio and video. If you came in right at 6, you would notice that we made a quick announcement saying that we were going to start at 6:05, and then I turned on some music. Having that music makes it, you know, a little less awkward. They're not just, you know, sitting there staring at each other. If you have a group that already knows each other, then that extra 5 minutes could just be time for everybody to catch up and, you know, talk with each other because they haven't seen each other. And so this would be a great opportunity. But, you know, if you just kind of hear awkward silence, and having a little bit of music can help that, you know, and increase the engagement. I tend to use instrumental music. Um, Others will have a playlist for kind of waiting time on a Zoom. But of course, if you have a playlist, you want to make sure that all the music is clean. Start with an icebreaker, as you would in person. You know, kind of investigate and research what are some virtual icebreakers available. There are a lot online now because that's been something more in demand because the kids can't do the icebreakers in person. You want to create a cloud document. So Google Docs is free, and it's a great way to store documents that everybody can use. So if I have a document, or if I wanted to share this PDF with everybody without having to email everybody, then I would save this on my Google Doc. I would have a folder entitled 4-H. I would save it into my Google Documents and then share, just to view, not to edit. And that would allow me to just copy and paste the link onto the chat. And then everybody can click that link, and now they have access to the PDF that they can save on their computer. So being able to have, you know, a cloud that everybody can access is really helpful to sharing information without worrying about having to email it out to everybody. Poll questions. The Zoom does have a poll feature that allows people to, you know, kind of take polls. That does help. However, it doesn't really work when you have 3 or 4 kids in one house and you can only answer one time, because then you're taking away some votes on that. So when you're voting on something, you want to make sure that, you know, votes are done through the chat for yay or nay. Those are done through the chat. But if you just want to take a quick survey, then you can do a poll. But you don't want to take away any votes from any of the kids. So that's better done through the chat. And then allow extra time for responses. So again, you want to assign someone to lead the meeting, and that role can change to depending on, you know, if you want to give your kids different roles every time we do this, just so they can get used to it. Assign someone to facilitate the chats. Assign someone to mute when they're not the person that's talking, or when you have a presenter that's talking. And then if you have someone if some have joined via the phone, you may need to call them directly to speak. So for the club meeting experience, we want to make it just like is if it was face-to-face. Even though we know it's not exactly the same, we want them to feel like it was. So everyone has to be able to be heard and speak to one another, but it has to be done in an orderly fashion. So, you know, using that raise hand button really helps. We want to make sure that the kids can conduct business, they can do quorum as youth members, and bylaws are still in effect. Members must be able to make, receive, and discuss reports. They need to be able to make motions, and that can be done through the chat. And they have to be able to conduct and record votes. Agenda is going to be standard. It's going to be the same that you use, just like if we were face-to-face. And that includes having an educational program. So during your monthly meetings, you know, we still want to have an educational program for them to be able to come. The presiding officer should practice using the platform ahead of time, because they're probably going to be the ones doing kind of all the leadership roles and moderating. Assign an officer to moderate. The secretary should still record meetings. They do specify that having recording of the meeting does not take place of the secretary writing it down and recording. You know, having minutes of the meeting. And we still want the kids to say their pledge, their motto, their prayer. All of that can be done virtually and online. We don't want to forget any of that. Parliamentary procedures are basically, they're saying it's going to be the same. Use the gavel just as you would as in person, but be aware that some individuals may be listening on their headphones, so tap lightly. Voting. There are rules to voting, but they're basically saying voice voting are difficult, so you want to make sure that you utilize the chat. You don't want to do polls, because you can take away votes for multiple members in one family when you're doing that. So voting should be done in the chat. If for some reason it's an emergency and you do need to suspend some rules that you would normally follow in a meeting, then you want to talk to both Clarissa or I, and make sure that, you know, the measures that you're taking are approved. And it says all members are notified at least 2 weeks in advance of the proposed rule change and voting procedures. And then there is a little excerpt here on elections, but I believe y'all have done elections already. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Okay. So I'll pass through this one, and that's the last one. So there's more resources here if you would like. Does anybody have any questions or anything that you would like me to show you? How to use the poll. Zoom also has really great breakout room features that can be utilized when you have, you know, if you're together in a general meeting and you want to split the kids up into their project meetings, you can do that using breakout rooms. And you can assign, you know, which kid goes into which breakout room ahead of time before the meeting. And then during the meeting, you just break them out and they already go to where they need to go. So that's another really great feature on Zoom. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, we can email this out to you. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. So I'm gonna stop sharing. And this document was actually on the Texas 4-H website under the management portion, but we'll email it out to you anyway. That way you don't have to worry about trying to find it.
And here is the Texas 4-H website as well, for those of you that haven't seen it. And she is referring to this tab up here. And 4-H management would be where you would find it. But let me go ahead and go back to this presentation that we have over here. So pretty much everything Ms. Guadalupe mentioned, that is going to be like the basis for how we would like for y'all to conduct any sort of project training with your 4-H members. You know, try and teach us virtually if you can, due to right now we are, you know, we're still a hotspot, so we still need to be careful. We need to make sure we're being as safe as possible when we're interacting with the kids. Making sure you're using a platform that you're familiar with. Like she mentioned, you know, find out what the kids are used to using, whether they prefer Zoom or any of the other platforms that were mentioned, and trying to maintain and try to, like I said, try to stay as virtual as possible. Obviously, we do understand that there are projects that just, you know, there's things you just have to be in person for. So we do understand that. Here are some examples as far as some project areas that were mentioned in the RSVP. I know a lot of you all were asking in reference to the beef project. I will say that, I mean, in reference to showing cattle, having a beef project, you need to be in person for a lot of those things, especially as a project leader, depending on what that 4-H member needs help with. The only thing that we ask is that you please, you know, try to stay 6 feet apart if you do go and visit that 4-H member's project at their home or wherever they have their project corralled. You know, you want to make sure that you all are both wearing your masks. Please socially distance and try to have hand sanitizer on hand. Because obviously, especially for a beef project, you know, any kind of livestock project, that is something that really, that is a hands-on activity. No matter how hard we try, you know, there's just some things you have to do in person. And these projects are some of those. I will say though, if you have a 4-H member that's completely new to showing a beef project and they have basic questions as far as, you know, what kind of halter to use on their animal, how to brush their animal, showmanship skills, you know, things like that, that's more informational. There's plenty of videos for them to see on YouTube. On Texas 4-H has resources as well for those people that just have very basic questions, to where you don't necessarily have to go to that person's home. There's a lot of different ways we can do that. Foods and nutrition, this one is a big one where, of course, anything informational as far as nutritional information, that's something you can share with those 4-H members and just tell them, you know, please watch this video. This is very informative on this, this, and this. And you know, share as much and any kind of resources to where an activity they can do at home, you know, something that'll help them learn those nutritional facts. But when it comes to actually making the dish, if you are going to put on some kind of activity for the kids to do a follow along with you on how to make something, make sure that that child has an adult with them cooking. They can't be cooking that by themselves, especially, you know, the younger kids. They need somebody to watch them. We don't want anybody getting burned. We don't want any issues or anybody cutting themselves with that. But you know, you can do a follow along recipe with them to where, you know, you can have Zoom set up with them, make sure the camera is on you, tell them, look, these are the ingredients you need ahead of time. Go ahead and pick these up and I'm going to show you how to do this. So, and especially when it comes to learning how to cut certain things a certain way, you know, how to cut how to dice potatoes, how to slice carrots, you know, things like that. You know, there are videos. I believe you can find a lot of things on YouTube, and a lot of videos on YouTube are very informative. And you know what, that's a video that's already been done, that somebody did the work and put together for you, and you can just share that with the kids. But just make sure, obviously, that whoever put on that YouTube video, make sure you watch it in its entirety, just to make sure that there's nothing inappropriate in that video for those kids to see. And then photography as well, that is a project that can be done virtually as well. Obviously, so beef is more of a hands-on project. Just be safe with that one. Foods and nutrition is half and half. It can be hands-on, but it can be done virtually as well. Photography can be done entirely virtual since that project is more of a solo project, an individual project. If those kids have any questions with anything, they can always call you, they can FaceTime you. You know, if they have anything that they need you to see, you can try and do that with them as well, and any educational information to share with them as well. Again, photography has a lot of really nice YouTube videos of basics to learn about your camera, you know, little things like that. And even for the photography, I would recommend give them like a project, you know, tell them, you know what, take one picture every day type of thing. Find something that inspires you and take that one picture. And that's one way to kind of keep the kids engaged and kind of getting them to learn more about that particular camera. But these are just some examples of projects that were mentioned. And these are just some of the ways that we feel would be best to kind of approach them in training the kids. And of course, online platforms, Zoom, Microsoft Teams has been updated to where now it is a lot like Zoom. So, and that one is free. So that's one that we have access to as well through extension. We use it a lot for our meetings. These are the two main ones that we've been using that, I mean, as far as me, that's the one I'm most familiar with, are Teams and Zoom. So those are the two platforms that we do recommend because they are very good platforms. And then of course, how to keep the kids engaged, be engaging. Obviously you want to have that energy about you to where the kids kind of want to match it. You want to make sure that you have some sort of hands-on activity for them to do, encourage discussion with them to kind of get them motivated and get them engaged in the meeting. You know, if you want to call out a kid and ask him what he thinks, do it, you know, because that's how they're going to pay attention. If you don't even bother, you know, trying to interact with them individually throughout the meeting, then, you know, they tend to zone out. You know, let's be honest, they do tend to zone out, and they've already been online virtually all day too. So we want to make sure that this is something that is more of a fun activity for them and not more schooling for them. And as far as educational activities, resources, materials, Texas 4-H website, which I just showed, which I'll show you again more on it and where to find certain resources on there. For any livestock projects, the Youth Livestock and Agricultural Project resource page, that has a lot of really good information for any of you project leaders that are in charge of the livestock. And then again, YouTube. I will not say, there is not a video on YouTube that you cannot find that can help you, you know, with anything that you need help with on there. And like I said, if you are going to use YouTube to show the kids a video, just make sure that you've watched it yourself beforehand, just to make sure that it's good to go. And as far as anything that I've mentioned so far, does anyone have any questions? All right, so as Ms. Guadalupe mentioned, we can do polling on here, but another thing that I think is a really good hands-on activity that the kids can do, well, not necessarily hands-on, but more interactive for them, is one that I actually recently participated in for work. It's called Quiziz, and it's like an online game kind of quiz for the kids. So let me see how this is gonna work.
Could you copy and paste the link on the chat?
I have not. It's supposed to, can y'all see the quiz thing?
We can see it, we just can't access the link.
Oh, okay. Well, no, this is, so this is how you join. So you use any kind of device that the kids would have so they can use their phones. You go to that link up there and then you enter that code. And so from there, that's where it starts the quiz. So if any of y'all want to try it right now, feel free to do so. And then as you can see right here, it says waiting for participants to join. So on there is when it'll start showing you when people join the quiz. And this is actually very good for, you know, those projects that involve, you know, nutritional projects for like food show, food challenge, you know, ways for the kids to kind of learn the basics by doing some sort of interactive game or quiz. So this is actually a really good resource, and kids love games. So this will be very engaging for them, as, you know, to begin with. And this is something that can be, you know, adjusted to almost any of these projects that you want to, the projects that you all are in charge of. And other examples of activities, like I said, our quiz is, Kahoot is another one where it's one of those that they just text in and they can do it from their phone. And then if you want to kind of have some kind of activity for them to do at home, depending on what it is, they may already have what they need at home to be able to do it. And then especially, let's say photography, if you're a project leader and you're talking to some kids about photography, and you want them to go ahead and take a picture of something, just ask them, you know, grab the prettiest thing in your house and see what they bring, and they're like, okay, go outside and take a picture of it. And then, you know, from there they can send it to you, and you can give them critiques on the picture and things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways you can adjust this depending on the project area. And so these are examples of videos that I felt were very informative. So for example, here we have the pig, and those that are interested in livestock judging or project leaders for livestock judging, there is livestockjudging.com, which is a very informative website for you to be able to show the kids. And so if I went ahead and got on the link right here, let's see, it can load. And livestockjudging.com actually has videos of all, you know, species that are normally done at the livestock judging contests. And they have, you know, this is pig number 1, for instance, that we're looking at right now, class number 6, and they show the pig from all angles. So this is something that you can do to teach your kids as far as livestock judging goes, for them to practice to where you don't have to gather in person. You know,
we're still looking at your PowerPoint.
oh, sorry. Just kidding. All right. All right. Can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So like I said, this is livestockjudging.com. For those of you that do have livestock judging in your club and you're a project leader for that particular project, this is a very good website for you to use. They have all these videos. Right now we're looking at market swine. They have market steers. This is a limited to what you can view though. As you can see, these right here, you have to have premium access for those. So you do have to pay, I believe it's a yearly fee of $100 to have full access to it. But the videos that you do have access to, you know, those work just as well. And another way that you can actually get more videos is YouTube. There's actually quite a few on YouTube as well of people that have posted for livestock judging. And like I said, on here, they show the animals. They show each animal. This is animal number 1. They have number 2, 3, and they even have here where you can have the kids place them. And then it'll give you, you know, more information after you get them placed. But this is actually a very good resource to have as well. I'm gonna go back to here. And then, like I said, photography. Photography has,
I'm still looking. Oh, there.
Sorry, that was really loud. So this is a video that I found as far as photography. It's a photography course. It's simple, you know, basics of what your camera, how to use it, what each button does, things like that. So there's a lot of resources available that are free that you can use to help teach the kids those project areas that you're in charge of. And again, these are the projects that were the ones that you all, which I'm sorry, the for some reason it messed up here. But there are projects here that you all were, you know, specific on as far as the ones that y'all are in charge of. And here are some resources underneath each one where, and I will send this out to you all so that way you have access to it as well. But these are some areas that I believe are really good educational resources for them, for you to be able to use to show your kids and to, you know, share with them. Does anybody have any questions on anything so far?
Ms. Cody, it's a quick question.
Yes, sir.
On the, as you mentioned, on the livestockjudging.com, to get the premium, it'll be $100 a year. Would that be suffice for the club funds to use that for the teams to obtain that premium packet?
Yeah, they could definitely do that. It would be something that y'all need to vote on, just to make sure that everybody is agreeing to, you know, that you want to pay that expense for the kids. But I mean, it's a really good learning resource for them. And like I said, on there, it does have to where the kids can actually place them, and then it'll let you know whether the placing was correct. And it'll give you reasons as to why this animal got placed above the other. So that is a really good resource. It is a little pricey, but you know, if you have enough kids that are interested in it, it's worth it. It is worth it to have that. So for that particular one, that does cost money, but like I said, it's a very good resource and it's very well put together for the kids to be able to learn a lot from it. Any other questions?
Clarissa, while we're waiting for people to ask their questions, would it be okay if I show everybody where they can find some curriculum on the Texas 4-H?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if some of you are new project leaders or you're thinking of doing a new project, then there are curriculums online that you can use that has set lesson plans already made. And they're based off of the 4-H competition. So you're teaching the kids, you know, the project, and they're also they're getting prepared for their competitions. And those are the 4-H Explore guides. And they can be found on the Texas 4-H website. So if you go under volunteers, if you go to texas4h.tamu.edu, you go under volunteers and then curriculum, that will take you to here. So you have curriculum that can be purchased online through the 4-H Mall. And if you take a look at that website, there's, you know, plenty of curriculum that, you know, clubs could buy. But these are completely free. These Explore guides are completely free. They're downloadable. The project leaders can download them. The students can download them. They have participant surveys as well to see how the project is going with the kids. So you have Explore guides that, you know, touch on clothing and textiles, the Duds to Dazzle. You have sewing basics, all of the food and nutritions. You have cooking in the kitchen, dollar and cents, the food challenge guide if you're going to have a food challenge team for the first time. You have leadership, Explore guides, performance arts. You also have a photography one. The photography one I actually use a lot when I train the clubs in the after school programs. Currently we have a San Benito after school program, 4-H. And they use the Explore guide for photography quite a bit. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that one. And so, you know, the Explore guide, it talks about 4-H. It has the 4-H motto. What is 4-H for any of your new participants that are coming in or new families? It talks about the learning by doing, the experiential model. So the kids can get acquainted with that, why it is that, you know, 4-H is taught the way that it is taught. And then you have the 6 lesson plans already made for you. So lesson 1, you're talking about the camera. Lesson 2, you're going to how to select a subject. Lesson 3, you're going to talk about composition. Lesson 4, you talk about lighting, and then we can move on to managing photos. You do want to save it on a cloud. Are you going to print them out? And then printing and displaying. So each lesson plan comes with it gives you a time frame of more or less how much time this lesson is going to take. It has the materials needed, what objectives they're going to learn for each lesson. And then it comes with this kind of script that the teachers can use with all of the information that they'll need. And so it has due, you have the activity, you have activity 1 and activity 2, and then you also have questions to reflect, and then how to apply. So I think photography is one of those great projects that can be done completely online. And it's one of those projects where one meeting, you have the lesson and you talk about the skills, they do the activities, and then the next week that you meet, you know, you're asking the kids to just go out and apply what it is you learned. Or throughout the entire week, you know, between one meeting to the next, they're applying, they're taking pictures. And then the next time you meet, everyone's sharing the pictures that they took with each other and how it applies to what they learned the meeting before. And then they learn something new the next time. And so each Explore guide is structured exactly the same with the lesson plans, the information, or, you know, the script, if you will, objectives for each lesson. And so if you're teaching a new project, or if maybe, you know, you have some kids that are interested in a project, but you didn't have a project leader, or you don't have anybody, you know, that feels, you know, that they have the expertise, or they don't have a curriculum, I think the Explore guides are a great way to kind of, you know, dip your feet into a certain project with information that is research-based and helpful to the kids. And so there's a lot of different Explore guides. You also have the swine project, sheep and goat. You have water projects, robotics. So there's a lot of resources there on the 4-H website for you. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions so far on what we've gone over? And again, just a recap of what we've, you know, gone over with y'all with everything, you know, just try and be as best effective project leader as you can virtually. We know that it's hard, especially with 4-H in general. You know, everything we do as a 4-H program, it's all meant to be hands-on. It's all meant to get interaction with the kids, get them outside, you know, get them doing things that they don't do at school. Unfortunately, right now it's not possible. So we want to try and keep things, you know, going and not necessarily have to stop any of the projects from happening. So the best way to go about that is, you know, to do it virtually. Being aware of the materials that are available to you, like Ms. Guadalupe mentioned, on the Texas 4-H website, there's a lot of information on there, and based off of you know, what they have available on there, you can kind of incorporate, you know, little YouTube videos, activities, you know, the little Kahoot or quizzes, activities for them to do to kind of get them engaged within the training, making it interactive and fun, encouraging them to participate and discuss with each other, you know, discuss how their projects are doing, you know, anything interesting that they learned from having this project, whether it's a new project or a project they've done before. And just trying to navigate this new normal and try to be patient with yourself, be patient with the kids. You know, we're all, you know, it's been a little frustrating, I'm not gonna lie, but you know, it is what it is. We gotta just kind of have to adjust and keep going. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job of that so far. And it's overall, it's just trying to be safe, just trying to keep everybody safe, so that way we can try to get back to normal as quickly as possible. And so I do have a schedule of our county 4-H events. And of course, this I will send out, so don't panic if you can't write all this down right now. But this is just an idea of what's going to be going on this upcoming 4-H year. Obviously, these dates can change, especially especially with everything in the air right now with COVID and, you know, whether or not certain contests are going to happen. Things may change at a later point depending on what happens. So please be aware of that. I will say that as far as for Foods and Nutrition Project, Food Challenge has been moved to the spring. So coming up in October, we will only have food show. We won't have a food challenge contest due to it being moved in the spring and due to that contest needing for kids to gather as far as a group of 4 kids are normally a food challenge team. So we felt it was best as a district and more safe to just go ahead and move it to the spring as opposed to trying to have the contest right now in the fall. So like I said, these are a list of events for our 4-H year. I will send this out sometime tomorrow so that way you all can have this and you can share it with your kids and your club as well. And then I will mention that the District 4-H, they have released their district calendar as well for any kind of district events. As you can see, they have Food Show, which is the first event that we will be having in November. And then as you can see also Food Challenge, which is kind of in the middle of the calendar, that the date hasn't been set for that one, that we just voted on it Monday to get it moved to the spring. So as of right now, we don't have a date just yet. But once a date has been determined, I will go ahead and determine a date for our county contest and we'll go from there. Does anybody have any questions so far on, or any, you know, questions in reference to the dates for any events? All right, so Ms. Guadalupe, do you have anything you want to add before we close it out?
No, I guess I think another resource that you could also utilize is the National 4-H website. There are some, you know, programs, and sometimes we do get the emails, the National 4-H email. So take a look at those and see what's being announced on that. I know they have the 4-H STEM lab. I'm a big STEM person, so I've been using the STEM activities that they have in the STEM lab with the, you know, with the 4-H meetings that I have. And there's also some YouTube videos that I've done on our AgriLife YouTube with some of the STEM experiments. And I think our FCH agents have also done some cooking, you know, food and nutrition videos that you can use as well for the food show or the food challenge. So, you know, utilize what we have in the state, utilize what we have kind of nationwide. But I think there's plenty of resources out there. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. There was a flyer sent out recently for the 4-H STEM Challenge, which is going to be conducted on 4-H week. And so that is, I believe the 4-H STEM Challenge this year is going to be Mission to Mars. So if you sign up, your kids will get a kit to do all of the STEM experiments, and the kit will be free. It'll be sent out to your home. And then on October, I want to say the 10th. Let me look at my calendar so I'm not lying to you. On October, we will have, no, October 12th. On October 12th, we will have the virtual STEM Challenge day where all of the kids will get to open their kits and we do all of the different Mission to Mars experiments together. So feel free to sign up for that. That is a state program through CEP, but anybody is welcome to sign up. So, you know, sign up before kits are taken up. We still have some available. But other than that, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either one of us.
Yes, our emails are provided here. And like I said, we will send out this presentation to you all along with that document that Ms. Guadalupe was showing you all earlier. And we're here to help in any way that we can. So if there's something that you need help with, please let us know. We'll help you set up a meeting. We'll help with any resources that we can, and do what we can to get you all started and get the kids started, and work with you on these project areas. So if there's not any questions, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for gathering with us this evening, taking the time out of your day to listen to us talk and provide you with this information. And if you, like we were saying, if you have any questions, we're here to help. If you need anything at all, we want to make sure that we try to run this program as normal as possible, and get things going and not necessarily have to stall on anything. So thank you so much for joining us, and y'all have a great evening.
All right. I think it's just you and me.
Yeah, I think so.
That seemed to have gone well.
Yeah, I thought we would have more questions. But
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. I don't know. They're being shy.
yeah.
You'll
I
get
guess
phone calls tomorrow.
probably.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, I will email you the document, and I just kind of Googled and see if Texas 4-H had sent anything out, like officially for virtual best practices today, and I saw that, so I figured I'd share it with you. But I'll send it over to you.
Yes, please.
So you can send it. So you can send it to them, and I will also, I guess, send you a copy of the chat so we can take roster.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, ma'am. You have a good night.
Bye. You too.
Bye.